Hello, listeners. This is Kat. Welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfic. This is the continuation of Fall Apart, Collect the Pieces. This will be Part 12, Chapters 18 and 19. Chapter 18. Ari and Koda watched as Izuku pulled his phone out, frowning. The 1A group chat was blowing up again, courtesy of Denki, for the fourth time in 3 days. First had been the villain attacks, then Mina's meteoric slap, third a photo of Ochako trying to be stealthy in public with a handprint burned into her cheek, courtesy of Mina's acid, and now... Yo! Kachan went off! Link, Dynamight berates reporter. Izuku's heart was in his throat. He clicked the link, already dreading what he'd find. It started with some post-battle footage. The correspondent was describing the situation. A minor villain had cropped up, but seemed to know Dynamite's fighting style. It hadn't been a problem, just a nuisance, because Kachan's sheer power had overwhelmed the villain as soon as he'd been in range. The problem had been getting in range in the first place. The guy was slippery and had been using evasion tactics that were clearly employed with Dynamite in mind. At the end of it all, she approached Kachan, charred and annoyed as he was, and started haranguing him about the details of his fight. It was enough to drive anyone a little crazy, but Katsuki, who'd been through years of anchor management and a training course on how to handle press, managed to handle the intrepid reporter with grace, at first. Then, she had to run her stupid mouth. "That villain gave you more trouble than he normally would have," she said, fake sympathetic smile plastered on her face. "Does it make you nervous to know that villains know your strategies because of Hero Deku's carelessness?" "Oh, God," Koda mumbled. Both of his mentees had skirted the sofa to watch the debacle over his shoulder. "That was not a good move," Ari uttered. She sounded kind of horrified. Izuku could relate, mostly because he was watching Kachan, and he could pinpoint the exact moment that he stopped trying to control his temper. "The fuck did you just say to me?" he growled. Kudos to the news outlet for attempting to censor him. Not that it was possible. They'd never get a full sentence out of him that way. Especially when he was pissed off, like now. "Deku's failure to secure sensitive information has caused massive devastation for the city and the hero community. Who knows how much more information is floating out there? Doesn't it upset you that your partner acted so irresponsibly?" Katsuki ground his teeth for all of 3 seconds. Then his control snapped. "You know what? Fuck this. Fuck you, really. I'm not authorized to comment on this shit until we have all the information, but fuck it if I'm gonna let you keep shitting on Deku. Every fucking hero in my generation would be a steaming pile of shit without those notes. Deku doesn't just save people with his own power. Those notes have let him save people through everyone else's power, too." The reporter gave him a sickly, sympathetic smile, as though she pitied him. "That doesn't change the fact that they should have been better secured. Uravity and Ingenium." "You think I give a flying fuck what those backstabbing idiots think? You think I give a flying fuck what you think?" "Deku's colleagues and the public both deserve a hero they can rely on, don't they? The past month has proved that he's not that hero." Katsuki scoffed. "You know what the worst fucking part of this is? Even with everyone in the fucking world shitting on him, he'd put his life on the line for you. It doesn't matter if you're the biggest piece of shit in the world. If you have a pulse, he thinks you're worth saving. And when the truth comes out, you'll all feel like shit and give him shitty apologies after you turned on him, and he'll accept it with that stupid hero smile of his and pretend none of this shit hurt him. None of you deserve a hero like Deku." He took a deep breath, then refocused his glare on the stunned reporter. "If I ever see you at one of my attack sites again, I'll blow your equipment to kingdom fucking come. If I ever hear you insulting Deku again, I'll fuck you up, so stay the fuck away from me." "You can't threaten me," she huffed. Izuku sighed, watching as Katsuki towered over the reporter. Nobody told Kachan what he could or couldn't do. It was one of the things Izuku liked most about him. He just hoped that the public would be moved by his show of loyalty instead of put off by the violent nature of his declaration. "If you shit on my partner and spread false bullshit, if you fucking slander my partner, you fucking bet I can. Now get lost." Then, as though to punctuate his point, he snatched the microphone out of her hand and blew it up on the spot. Katsuki was always good at getting his message heard. He stomped away after that, and the reporter turned to the camera frowning. She gestured to someone behind the camera, and another, cheaper-looking microphone was shoved into her hand. "Can Deku and Dynamite be trusted? With the upswing of volatile and frankly violent behavior from the two of them, we at HeroNet are deeply concerned. We'll be keeping an eye on the further developments." Izuku scowled, gripping his phone a little too tight. He only eased up when he heard the telltale sound of crumpling metal. Don't get him wrong, he was honored to have Katsuki in his corner. That such an amazing person was his best friend and willing to go to bat for him. His heart was warm with the knowledge that Katsuki thought so highly of him. But the rational part of him, that wasn't constantly blinded by Kachan's brilliance, was frustrated as fuck. Sure, at this point, the benefits of someone speaking up would outweigh the drawbacks. Theoretically. Theoretically, someone speaking out in his favor would probably be good, but if it was Katsuki, there was a strong chance that the public would turn on him too. They were too close. They could decide that Katsuki was too close to him to be objective. They could decide that they didn't trust him either. They could declare that he was unhinged, not unlike the idiots who decided he was a villain his first year at UA. He appreciated Katsuki's defense. He really did. But he hated that he put his own reputation on the line. Besides, they were supposed to be waiting for the commission to make a statement. What if the commission issued a reprimand because Katsuki had jumped the gun? What if they benched him? Then they bench him, and you two nerd-ass midlifers sit here and watch All Might shows together for 2 weeks and pretend the outside world doesn't exist, Kota drawled, shuffling back to his spot on the couch. He slumped into his seat lazily. Izuku shot him an unimpressed glare. Hey, he didn't kill the reporter. Count that as a win. He had a point, damn it, but that didn't mean he had to be happy about it. He could still be worried, and annoyed that he had to be worried. Take that, Kachan. Besides, it's sweet how he's always got your back, Eri cooed. You're so important to him, Deku. Can't be mad at him for caring. He flushed. I can be irritated that he risked his own reputation for it, he grumbled. We were supposed to release all the information at once. Maybe this brief interruption to the plan will get people to stop acting like dick puppets, Kota suggested. Izuku sighed, resigning himself to this turn of events. It's not like he could do anything about it now anyway. He let Eri and Kota lower him back into their movie marathon, reluctantly letting go of the anxiety that had crawled up his spine since his phone started blowing up. 4 hours later, he heard keys in the front door. Since there was now only one person on the planet who had a key, he knew to school his face into a disapproving scowl. Hey, nerd. Junior nerds. Katsuki greeted them nonchalantly. He strolled in and beelined for the kitchen, not even looking in their direction. Izuku's scowl deepened. Kachan was pretending he hadn't done anything wrong, just in case Izuku hadn't seen the news. Nice try. Hey, Kachan, how was your day? He asked, forcing false brightness into his tone. In his periphery, he could see Eri and Kota giving each other looks of alarm. Same as usual. People are annoying as shit. Villains are fucking stupid, you? He called back. Izuku heard the clank of plates and forks, which meant Kachan was unloading the takeout he'd brought. Fine. Just watch some interesting things, he replied. In the corner of his eye, he could see Kota shuffling toward the edge of the couch. Yeah. So, how was your All Might marathon, nerd? He called back, only hesitating for a moment before opting for fond belittlement. It was great. Wish you'd been here, he said through gritted teeth. Eri clutched at Kota's arm, holding him in place so he couldn't escape without her. You know, things to do, idiots to save. Yeah? Any good fights? Nope. So you didn't talk to anyone interesting? Nope. What about threats? Threaten any reporters on live television today? Silence. I think we're, Kota stuttered. I think we're gonna go. Nope. He brought food for 4. You're staying, Izuku said. But feel free to hide in the sad remains of my merch room. Cool, thanks, he squeaked. Let's go, Eri, he said, pulling her off the couch as he made his escape. Go easy on him, Eri called, just before she disappeared into the hallway. Kachan stayed silent, so, readying himself for a fight. Izuku stood from the couch and made his way to the kitchen. Katsuki didn't look up from his task, meticulously scooping food into individual plates as though it was an art form and not takeout. What were you thinking? He asked, a lot less angrily than he thought he would. Instead, he just sounded tired. I was thinking that reporter was a level 10 butt plug. How else do you explain the amount of shit she had inside her? He chuckled, pleased with his pun despite the tension. Kachan, he sighed. Be serious. Katsuki put down the takeout container and turned to face him. I am. She was way the fuck out of line. And by asking me that fucking question, she was asking for what came next. I'm always in your corner. Everyone knows that, Deku. His heart fluttered. He didn't let it show on his face, though. We were supposed to wait for the commission. We were trying to keep your name out of the mud. One of us has to be in the clear, remember? Katsuki frowned at him. Did you only watch the interview? He asked, confused. His eyebrows shot up. There's more? He asked, alarmed. Yeah, because I was anticipating the nagging. Katsuki barked, fishing out his phone from his pocket. Izuku crossed his arms defensively. He only nagged when Kachan went rogue. I went to PR as soon as I was off duty. Katsuki handed Izuku his phone. crossing his own arms as he waited for the irate Greenette to watch the video that was cued on the screen. Skeptical, Izuku pressed play. In it, Katsuki was sitting at his desk, looking way less pissed off than the interview, but still tense. I'd like to formally apologize to the reporter from HeroNet that I spoke to this afternoon. I was fresh from a fight and already agitated. The statement she made about my partner made it worse. That doesn't excuse my actions. Kachan. Keep watching, Katsuki interrupted. I was harsh, and I'm sorry if it alarmed anybody. However, I don't regret it. Deku's my partner and my best friend. He's more important to me than anyone in the world. I will never stand by and do nothing when he's in trouble, even if that trouble is just bad press. Izuku's lip trembled, but he didn't say anything. The video wasn't done. My life depends on my trust in him, and I wouldn't put that trust in someone who hadn't earned it. He's earned it 1,000 times over. I'd like to ask all of you, even the skeptics, to wait until the Commission's investigation is over to pass final judgment. It's the least he deserves for all that he's done. Kachan, you... It's not done yet, Deku, he scolded, turning back to his immaculate takeout plating. Pay attention. Izuku scowled at him. Fuck him for being so sweet, then turning around and being a complete turd. I'd also like to address the reporter's question. I shouldn't have dismissed it out of hand when so many of you are wondering the same thing. Katsuki tossed him a smug look over his shoulder. Izuku flipped him off as a matter of principle. Kachan didn't get to give him heartburn and be smug when he fixed the problem. That's not how it worked. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, HeroNet asked me if it makes me nervous to know that my strategies are compromised because of Hero Deku's carelessness. Izuku's lips pursed at Katsuki's use of air quotes, which gave the oddly sincere message a sour note of sarcasm. The answer is no, to all of it. Izuku raised an eyebrow at his partner, who didn't even look at him, opting to pick up the plates and walk them out to the dining room instead. First of all, I'm a hero. I would be a shitty hero if I can't change my strategies to suit the situation. We may have our comfort zones, but good heroes can pivot when things go wrong. Any hero blaming Deku for their strategies being leaked is a lazy hero, too set in their own ways to adapt. If someone can predict every single one of your moves, you need to work on new moves. Izuku grit his teeth. Yeah, antagonizing their colleagues was a great idea. And fellow heroes, if that offended you, you should look into your training plans to see where you can diversify your strategies, because I'm probably talking about you. Jesus. Second of all, Deku is anything but careless. I know what you've seen on the news, and I know what you've seen from Deku's ex-wife. I'm not allowed to say much right now, but I can at least tell you this. Deku's home is a fortress. His security system was designed by Mei Hatsume herself, and in order to even visit, guests needed to be approved by the Commission. Those measures were put in place to protect himself, his family, and the hero community at large. The house is more secure than Tartarus, at Deku's own insistence. So, am I upset with him for my compromised strategies and weaknesses? No, because he's my partner, and I know that he was protecting that information with every tool he could get his hands on, because he cares too much about people to be careless with something that could cause harm. That's why I trust him with my life, and I always will. Izuku's eyes were wet. Katsuki had only cursed once in that entire speech, and it had been stupidly sweet. Sure, there were a few flaws, but the fact that he'd apologized at all spoke volumes. Kachan had done that for him, because he'd known that he was freaking out and didn't want him to worry. He'd swallowed his pride. Izuku didn't know if he'd ever done that for anyone else, but he was more than happy to claim that privilege as his, and his alone. He shuffled into the dining room, lips trembling at the sight of Katsuki, Eri, and Koda chatting at the dining table. God, he loved them all. He didn't deserve them. Katsuki looked up at him, eyebrows raised. That was... good, Izuku allowed. A little antagonistic in places, but good, he said, stern demeanor thwarted by the way his voice cracked, sentence ending in an emotional sniffle. Glad you liked it. Katsuki smirked. Izuku flipped him off again, for good measure. Eat something. Koda snitched on you. I know you've only eaten popcorn today, nerd. Izuku shot Koda a dirty look, just to get an unbothered shrug in return. So you're not mad? Eri asked. She sounded hesitant and hopeful, and honestly, he'd never been good at denying her hopes and dreams. No, Izuku allowed. But he's on thin ice. Katsuki scoffed. Yeah, right. I brought dessert. I'm golden. Izuku sighed. Yeah, he was golden. Chapter 19. Izuku woke up early the next morning. It felt like it was going to be a good day. Well, at least it felt like it wouldn't be a bad day. At the very least, he was going to start out on the right foot. Climbing out of bed, he stretched, pushing the remaining sleep out of his limbs. He didn't have much to do until the Commission released a statement, so it would be another day taking it easy at home. As he sauntered into the living room, he gave a little grin at the lazy snoring emanating from the couch where Ari and Koda had fallen asleep last night. He and Kacchan had thrown blankets over them. Katsuki had taken blackmail pictures before going to bed themselves. Now that his merch was gone, maybe he could just convert the merch room into a spare bedroom. Then, since Kacchan was here more than half the time now, he could make the current spare bedroom into Kacchan's room. That thought was both depressing and heartwarming in equal measure, and as he made coffee for himself and the house crashers, he stewed on it. If he converted the merch room into a guest room, he wouldn't be reminded of how devastatingly empty it was every time he passed it. And, now that the notebooks were gone, he could ease security. Maybe he could have more friends over to distract him from the fact that his prized possessions were gone. He should be more optimistic. Maybe now he could rebuild it from scratch or something. On the other hand, he could never get the stuff with sentimental value back, and that might just make it worse if he tried to rebuild. Everyone else in the house was still sleeping, so he poured himself a cup, more like a pitcher, of coffee and sat down at the table. He pulled out his phone, promising himself that he'd only check his emails. He didn't need the devastating crush of public perception via social media this early in the morning. He hadn't even brushed his teeth yet. First, he checked his text. It was, again, early, so he wasn't exactly counting on many messages. There were a couple in the group chat, but the former classmates who weren't on night shift had gotten to bed around the same time he had. It was mostly just Denki proudly showing off memes that had sprouted from Kacchan's interviews. He snorted at a side-by-side one with Kacchan yelling and the other with him calmly at his desk. It was captioned, Chihuahua versus Golden Retriever. Somehow, he doubted that Kacchan would appreciate being compared to a dog in any regard. When he ran out of text, he switched to email. There were a few promotional things, a couple of newsletters, and he gasped, mid-sip, nearly inhaling a mugful of his burning hot coffee. He took a moment to let his airway clear before yelling, Kacchan! Scrambling from his seat as he did, he heard someone fall off the couch but didn't stop to see who it was. His eyes were still fixed on the list of 36 emails, only one of which was opened. He slammed the door to the guest's bedroom open, faltering when he saw Kacchan freeze, one leg in his sweatpants as though he'd been pulling them on and shirtless. The fuck is the matter? Katsuki croaked, voice rough with sleep. He resumed his attempt to clothe himself. The HR team sent 36 resumes to us this morning, he uttered. His phone chimed and he glanced at it. 37. He scrolled through them, eyes widening as he read through them. Katsuki frowned, grabbing his shirt off the baseboard and tugging it on. The fuck? Recruiting doesn't start for 3 months. Recruiting out of hero school, sure, but this was different. It's like half of Ingenium's sidekick team, he uttered, eyes glued to the email on his screen. This particular sidekick had interned with them during his last year at Chiketsu, and they'd almost hired him when he graduated. He'd chosen Team Itaten because it was closer to his parents. What are you talking about, Deku? Izuku cleared his throat, still burnt from coffee, and began to read. Dear Deku and Dynamite, I'm not sure if you remember me, but I worked for Team Smashbang for the final year of my hero work studies. I truly enjoyed my time with your agency, and I hope you'll be willing to hear my request. Due to the current security risks and the moral discrepancies that Team Itaten is facing, I've decided to seek a change in employment. As I've experienced working with you and continue to aspire to the success and philosophy that Smashbane strives for, I was hoping to resume my employment with your agency. I've attached my resume for your consideration. Please let me know if you need anything from me to make your decision. Best, Hiroki Watanabe. Hero name, Dark Ray. Moral discrepancies, I get. Ida's a literal cocksleeve, Katsuki grumbled. But what security risks? I have no idea, he replied. There was a pit in his stomach, concerned that something else had happened with Ochako that put Ida's team at risk. We should call in and ask, Izuku murmured, opening the next email. Maybe the HR team has a better idea of what's going on? Sure, whatever, Katsuki agreed. Did you make enough coffee for everyone, or is all the available coffee spilled on your shirt? Izuku looked down at his t-shirt, taking in the large coffee stain that he hadn't even noticed. There's some in the pot, he said. Fantastic, he said, skirting around Izuku to make his way toward the kitchen. You call HR, I'll make breakfast. I don't pay myself enough to talk to them on my day off. Despite the nonchalant tone, Izuku could tell that Kacchan was stressed. It had been a constant shit show since that fucked-up day, an unending roller coaster of bullshit. They had no idea where the sudden shift had come from, and while he didn't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, life had been bitch-slapping him a lot lately. Not to mention, Katsuki had pissed off a major news outlet yesterday. He'd also probably pissed off a whole hefty bag full of heroes. Uncertainty felt like a threat now. What if the next thing was the thing that broke everything they'd built? After he got changed, Izuku followed Akatsuki to the kitchen, swiping through the rest of his emails, scanning them as he walked. Most of them had similar sentiments to the first, humbly asking to join Smash Bang and explaining why they wanted to leave Team Ida-ten. Some of them were more reluctant. It was as though they blamed Smash Bang, Izuku especially, for whatever security risk was making Team Ida-ten unviable. Ida-ten had over 100 sidekicks, though, so whatever had happened was apparently not bad enough for all of them to jump ship. Of course, it was possible that the rest had decided to hit up other agencies for new employment. He had no grasp of the situation's magnitude, and that was stressful too. "What are you yelling about at 7 in the morning?" Koda griped. He was sitting at the table, hair askew and scowl already in place. Eri elbowed him. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Softer and sweeter, he gave them a tight smile. "To be determined," he told them. "I need to make some calls, but I don't think it's bad. For me, at least, just alarming." They glanced at each other before looking back at him. "The fuck are you being so cryptic for?" Koda demanded, folding his arms and attempting to look stern. Izuku bit back a laugh. He looked more like the 5-year-old who punched him in the dick than anything else. "Because I might be legally barred from sharing HR information with you," he replied, picking his mug up from the table. They both frowned. "HR information? Is something wrong with your agency?" Eri asked. His heart clenched at the looks on their faces. It was sweet that they were so concerned. "Don't worry about it for now. Life's just a mess, you know. We're cleaning it up, though, slowly but surely." They looked skeptical, but relaxed into their seats, and Izuku took that as a cue to go refill his coffee. Katsuki was at the stove, housewifing his way through fancy-ass omelets with Izuku's Detroit snack apron securely tied around his waist. "Spinach and mushroom for you. I don't want to hear a single fucking complaint," Katsuki grunted. "Hey, I'm not cooking. No complaints here," Izuku mumbled back. He'd already returned his attention to his phone, mentally bracing himself for whatever conversation he was about to have with their HR team. "Good morning, sir," their head of HR answered before the first ring was over. It didn't bode well that he'd been waiting by the phone. "What's with the resumes, Aoki?" he asked. Trying to keep the nerves out of his tone, Katsuki slowed his movements, listening in as best he could. "You haven't seen it yet?" he asked, flabbergasted. Izuku sighed. "It would be really nice if people would assume that I haven't seen things, just in case I haven't seen those things yet. It would save so much time." "Sorry, it's all over the place," he explained. "I'm barely awake, and I only checked my email," he explained, shooting Katsuki an exasperated glance. "Want to fill me in?" "I'll send you a link," he said, followed closely by the exaggerated clatter of his keyboard. "Want to give me the basics while I wait?" he asked. He was getting really sick of the tiptoeing. Nobody wanted to bear bad news, and he understood that, but the suspense sucked. "Basically," he began, "Hatsume dropped Team Ida-ten as a client after Dynamite's statement yesterday. Between the argument that you had with Ingenium at his agency and the guaranteed decline in support gear and security quality, Team Ida-ten staff is jumping ship." Izuku could feel his pulse in his stomach. He put the phone on speaker and pulled up the email that Aoki had sent him, a link to a statement from a Hatsume support agency. "What about patrols in the area? Are they getting covered?" "We were waiting for your okay. The plan is to respond to all inquiries with a blanket statement. Basically, thank you for your interest. We'll consider your application and decide on next steps. In the meantime, please coordinate your patrols through the commission." "Do it," Izuku agreed. "And let the commission know that we'll take on approvals paperwork internally until the matter is resolved." "The hell is going on?" Katsuki asked. "I'll call you back once Kachan and I have talked it through," he told Aoki, holding up a hand for Kachan to wait. Scowling, the blonde turned back to the stove and flipped the omelet in the pan. He scanned through the statement once Aoki hung up. "Hatsume dropped Ida-ten as a client," Izuku explained. Katsuki made a noise of surprise, pulling the pan from the burner and turned to face him. "You serious?" Izuku nodded. "Listen to this. From the desk of Mei Hatsume. A cornerstone of being a support engineer is having the trust of the agencies you work for. I pride myself on the work I've done for the hero community and law enforcement, including the personal projects I've been commissioned for. Every single invention and system I design is point of pride. They're my babies. That includes the work I did for Hero Deku. In fact, that may be my greatest work of all. As one of Deku's closest friends, Ingenium was well aware of the trappings of my security system, and was even integral in testing its integrity. It was deeply offensive to hear him call my work inadequate, and it spoke volumes to the lack of trust he has in me and my work. Therefore, effective immediately, Hatsume Global Innovations will no longer provide support to Team Ida-ten. We will assist their transition to a new support agency in the hope that Ingenium can be more confident in them than he was with me and my team. Aside from that, we plan to cease all future collaboration. When he was done, Izuku just stared at his phone. Despite the tone of the statement that Hatsume was sticking up for herself and her work, he knew she was sticking up for him too. As long as she got to invent, Hatsume's professional ego was fairly small. If she didn't want to keep working with someone, she'd send them a private message and work it out behind the scenes. She'd made the choice to release a public statement for him, to stand in his corner. Damn, Katsuki piped up. Good for Tinkertits. Didn't know she had it in her. He was overwhelmed, surprised, grateful, warm, and completely unsure of what to say. He did know that he'd be working with accounting to find more budget for their contract with her, though. Which brought him to the other issue. Nobody wants to work without a support team, he said, voice a little dazed. That's why the 8 to 10 sidekicks quit. Good for them, too, Katsuki scoffed. Working under that blowhard dickweed must have sucked. How did the resumes look? Haven't been through them yet, Izuku said. He hadn't even read all the emails. We can go through them after breakfast, Katsuki suggested, reaching into his cupboard to grab plates. So what? We're going to hire 37 sidekicks? Where do we put them? What about patrol routes that are left underworked when they leave? Could they find the budget for more employees? The insurance alone was prohibitive. How many sidekicks would be left without an agency? Katsuki turned, handing him his plate. Relax, Deku, he chided, pushing him toward the dining room. We'll figure it out. We always do. All right, listeners. This concludes Chapter 19 of Fall Apart, Collect the Pieces. Chapter 20 will be next. I hope you all are still enjoying it, as always. Thank you so much for listening.